that noisy thing. 1 o'clock, September 22nd. I think I've been away for 14 days. I think I made a couple videos with my iPhone last week, but there's just not enough connection to load them up to the YouTube where I am. Which one video on my YouTube app that says it's still downloading is going to take another 19 hours. So who knows when that'll load up. And I finally found a place where there's no wind. The wind's been blowing 30 to 50 for quite some time now. And it's pretty tough to get out of the wind in this country. But I finally found a way. Just a big stands of big timber has never been logged before. I'm following these right-of-ways forever. I don't know where. I kind of know where I am. I'm a long ways from camp. And I got my GPS off on my way back. Hopefully the wind's not licking that camera too much. I'm going to take some time right now to share some emails. It's hot out. Everything's laying low. The game doesn't like the wind. I already have an elk, cut my elk tag last week. Got some big gust. That's too much wind. I'm gonna move somewhere. Back in a minute. What a pain in the butt. Yeah, I can't do this. It's like day 5 of this. Not being able to make a video or hunt or do anything. Tent slapping me in the head all night. Onward. See if I can find something somewhere. I can't take this. I know that camera and I know that wind's licking it. Onward. Find our spot. Shit. Oh, there is wind here. Alright, that's it. The towel is thrown. Thank God. Maybe, maybe not. Alright, listen to this. Hello from Vancouver Island. Hey Steve, my name is Steve, 38, and grew up mostly here on Vancouver Island, product of Cumberland with family ties to the 1800s here. I'm following your channel for about 4 or more years now, long before you came forward to proclaim the truth. I'm one of those who never seriously considered the topic of Bigfoot. When you revealed you had a first-hand encounter with a giant hairy-covered man and the story of your grandfather, I without a second thought, knew they were real. I'm one of those who sense things in people, situations, and animals that I know to be true, and usually are shown firsthand to be accurate regarding whatever sense I had that others don't seem to pick up on. I told others, including my family members, in advance of very specific things that have borne out, sometimes years later. All that to say I instinctively trusted what you said to be true. But a week after I came to believe they're real, a friend sent me a link to a YouTube video by a man named Michael Heiser, expert in ancient Jewish text and a Christian, that put many of the pieces together for me on biblical grounds. I personally have experienced evil on a level most could not comprehend existing, and who has known the truth and power of God while facing death, and felt terror far beyond the fear of death, where your body ceases to function. I've never seen one of these beings, however, I know I have encountered them, both of which occurred after I was made aware of them by you. Fall hunting season 2019, the very first frost of the year, and a very heavy one at that. I came down out of my tree stand about an hour after first light. It is located about 40 yards back from the edge of a swamp that is lined by a berm of tall grasses where deer often bed. I have another little ground blind on the far end of the swamp that would take 20 minutes to half an hour to hike around the edge of the swamp to get to. It's a very old swamp with thick moss on top of fallen trees that have now become part of the earth, more or less giving me the idea that maybe I could find a route across the swamp on these raised areas. I started picking my way across and quickly realized this is definitely not going to be faster than the hike around. I continued on enjoying myself as the sun was shining. Every step I took sunk through the thick frost about 6 to 8 inches of old moss. 20 minutes in and only halfway through the swamp, I stepped up onto what would have 20 minutes in, and only halfway through the swamp, I stepped up onto what would once have been a massive tree. Looking down on the other side was a perfect footprint pushed down through the moss to below the water level, making the thick frost turn bright green. It stood out in sharp contrast, leaving a perfect footprint, toes and all, seeing where the frost had been knocked off as it stepped down. I stood there for 5 to 10 minutes, totally perplexed, not finding any other footprint around the area where it stepped from or to. That's bizarre, isn't it? It was not a giant print. In fact, it struck me that the foot looked the same size as a men's 9. Couldn't seem to quite wrap my brain around it as I picked my way through to the other side. Of course, I can't say for a fact who's one of these people, but being able to see the moss had been squished down to below water level in an absolutely clear footprint, despite the fact it was only one track. I have no other explanation than it was what it looked like. Same mountain, 20 kilometers past the swamp. I would hike up through a steep clear cut that was about 4 years old, to get into a second, possibly old-growth forest with wide open sight lines, massive old trees and mossy floor with just occasional ferns sprouting up. You know the type, I'm sure. It feels almost otherworldly as you hike through it. Looking up the mountain on my left, it becomes a cliff face 100 yards up, and on my right it drops off into a creek. However, you can follow a ridge line up the mountain looking down 100 or 200 yards, some spots almost vertical to the creek below. I'd climbed / slid down there a number of times, as it's absolutely amazing in there, with massive boulders all through the creek bed area going up the mountain. The other side of the creek is even more treacherous, as the one time I crossed it following a bear trail, I'd gotten into a positioning where I was looking 50 feet straight down to the creek on this tiny mossy lip, thinking to myself, dumbass, what are you doing up here alone? Yeah, I've been there a bunch of times. I say all that to explain getting an excavator down there is impossible. The last time, for the fall of 2019, I was up there. I went into a spot I often sat about 50 yards into the woods past the clear cut. There was a fallen, rotting fir about 5 feet around that I would sit behind on the downhill side. I made a little seat there where I could look out at the major game trail 30 yards away, with just the top of my head and eyes peering over. I took my usual spot and got comfortable. Despite the feeling of immense pressure, I should note that for the last 5 years, when my life began to completely fall apart on my 7th trip to India, my wife's, at the time's, first trip, I have dealt with nearly totally debilitating anxiety, depression, and physical ailments. So this feeling of anxiety / pressure was so common, along with severe brain fog, that the fact this felt different made me think nothing of it. About a minute into sitting there, I heard a very large boulder move down in the creek bottom, which was over a rise and down the steep embankment about 50 yards off to my right, meaning I could not see down to where I first heard this sound. I sat there for about 7 to 10 minutes as my brain tried to come up with an explanation for what I was hearing, which was the constant movement of boulders being placed, some being rolled once, then rolled again, some being swiveled back and forth until they made contact with each other, some being picked up and dropped, some even being slid, being pushed or pulled. At first I was thinking, well, maybe 1 or 2 just happened to be released from where they had been sitting. And then as it became absolutely clear that they were being placed, I started wondering if it was possible an excavator had somehow made it up the creek or down the embankment. Keep in mind, I now believe these giant people existed. But still, my natural mind was doing everything in its power to explain what I was hearing. All this through the sound of the creek. The size of the boulders we were talking about down there, no man, no group of men could have rolled or moved a single inch. I now look at the pyramids in a different light. I could feel it. I could feel it in the ground. The brain fog and pressure mounted, and then there was a quiet voice that gently and calmly said, "Steve, get up, it's time to leave." I packed my stuff up, walked out down the clear cut about 300 yards, and peace flooded me. I sat down on a stump and stayed there looking down into the small valley until my headlamp was needed to get back down to my Jeep. I drove home barely making it as my Jeep broke down, a wheel bearing and front prop shaft. I didn't have the money to fix it, so that was the last time I was up in those mountains for the end of the fall season. And the next week, I found 2 small rocks placed in front of my door, about 6 feet back under an overhang, so a bird did not drop it. The stones were very clean, no dust or dirt, and definitely not from our area, which is down by the beach. They had green, almost jade color streaks. My gut tells me these people need to stop being looked at as anything less than free-willed people. It's almost impossible not to try to make them animalistic, such as how would an adult male react if he enters his territory or feels his family is threatened. I believe they make choices moralistically throughout their lives. They can choose hate, bitterness, and rage, or grow from pain, hurt, and disappointment, to choose compassion, or at least not to terrorize. Steve, in some ways, I'm a totally average wool Stanfield and jeans wearing island guy. In other words, in other ways, I've had an extraordinary and uncommon life that has always made me feel not quite normal, not quite a part of, an outsider. Between living overseas for years and having life experiences from the time I was a child that are totally outside the norm. If you happen to read this, or my fellow listeners would be interested in hearing truly unique and life-altering spiritual experiences I've had, I'd love to share, as I don't see these topics as mutually exclusive, but the opposite, being the same and entwined. At this time in history, we need men like you possibly more than ever, in a world constructed of lies, truth seekers and tellers who bow to no man, are the greatest threat to and the only inspiration and rampart against an evil that few have even the slightest inkling exists. Thank you for wisdom and hope in times of lies and despair. All right, man. Thanks for that email. Glad I got through that. I didn't forget to read it after yesterday's frickin' wind from hell. It's too bad you didn't go over and have a peek at what was moving those rocks. I think I would have. Then again, I wasn't there, so maybe I might not have. I don't know. It's interesting. Thanks for the kind words as well. Appreciate it. You know, I was thinking. You know, I'm 2 weeks out now from home, absolutely by myself up here in the north. If anybody is curious where I am, I'm on the north. I'm quite a ways north of the Peace River, in north central British Columbia. And I was thinking the other day, you know, remember how the last little while I've been trying to encourage or knee-jerk people who possibly know what's going on for real when it comes to these beings. And I've been trying to get, you know, scientists, military, law enforcement, whoever may be those people who absolutely know exactly what's going on when it comes to these beings and more. You know, we had a handful of successful people generously sharing, but I was finally, I think I may possibly be realizing something from coming at it from another angle is, with the amount of crazy shit, alarming things going on this planet today, if you were one of those people who ultimately knew all the facts when it comes to these beings, those same people are probably going to know a whole lot more of our truth, this planet's truth and realities, besides just the fact of these beings running around out here, right? And I would imagine if you were one of those people who knew, and you knew much, much more, this topic wouldn't be anything. You see what I'm getting at? It's tough sometimes to get smoothly out my mouth what's in between my ears, but I just have a funny feeling that the people who actually do know the intimate facts when it comes to these hairy beings, these massive beings running around our planet, they probably know much more about other topics that make this topic quite feeble in their mind and doesn't even deserve attention. That's what I'm guessing. Hopefully I got that out right. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's so much more alarming things going on with our actual reality that we have kept from us that this topic is pretty minuscule compared to what's really going on out there. But anyway, but I will maintain the course. There's too many people out there who are passionate about the same things I am and all you are, and they've had it ruined for themselves, and that's who I'm after right now, to give them courage, give them knowledge, let them know they're not alone, they're respected, and that I know they didn't ask for that experience. All right, and there's nothing to be scared of. and to give them the courage to quit being scared of the neighbor or family when it comes to truth, right? What do we got here? Here's another one. This is my old phone, by the way. I jacked it up on the cable here so I could get back to a bunch of these emails where people have been waiting for some time. Titled Hunting Guide. Hello, Steve. Been watching for a few years now. Would love to go on a guided hunt with you. Looking at your website. Alright. Hello, Steve. Been watching you for a few years now. Would love to go on a guided hunt with you. Looking at your website, there is nowhere to sign up. Or am I just missing it? Please let me know, as this would be my first guided hunt. Hey, thanks. And I get those questions non-stop. And I've let people know every once in a while, but continually. I'm not guiding right now, and I don't own an outfit area. What I have done in the past is I can approach different various outfitters and purchase the tag and do the hunt for past clients that I've guided. But I'm just too busy to do it right now. I do guide in the water now and then, but I'm either. So, no, I don't sell hunts, and I'm not looking to do any guiding currently right now. All right. With that being said, I have a story for you. It's not much, but it's very real. Back, I want to say 2002, 2003, around there in Mansfield, Connecticut, USA, CT, Connecticut, right? Just about a mile from home after dropping off my girlfriend at the time at school in Boston, so an hour and 20 ride back home. I just wanted to get home. My roommate at the time was with me as well. He was driving. About 1 mile from my house, this large, hairy man came down the embankment to our left, about 25 to 30 feet in front of us. He was huge. So large, he only needed to step 2 steps to cross the road and jump down the embankment to our right. Seamlessly, as it crossed our path over a guardrail and down a 60-foot embankment into a swamp. I turned to look to my friend. Did you see that? Yeah, he says. What the F was that? Was that what I think it was? And he said, I think so. To this day, he will not talk much about it, even if you ask him. He clams up. And he just says, yeah, we saw something. I don't know what, but something. We both know what we saw, but he is afraid to admit it to anyone. Give him this channel. A few years later, it's summertime, so I have all the windows open up, and it's around 1 or 2 a.m., laying in bed trying to fall asleep when I hear it. This horrific roar coming from the direction of that swamp I was just talking about. It was unlike anything I've ever heard in our woods. And I'm no stranger to our wildlife, bobcats and black bear, etc. I've been around all of our predictors, even the occasional wolf. Oh, I'm thinking that must have meant predators, even the occasional wolf. People have reported seeing mountain lions around here, and one was hit by a car about 8 miles from here. But this was no wolf, bear, or cat. It kind of sounded like a man crossed with a gorilla, maybe. I don't know. The thing sounded like King Kong. I don't know what it was pissed off at, but I get the feeling someone had a Sasquatch encounter that night. I mean, what else could it have been? I mean, it's Connecticut. We have nothing that big here. I don't know. I can tell you, Steve, is I know what I saw, and a need to see to believe. Oh. I know what I saw, and I'm a need to see to believe kind of guy. No offense, but that's why I don't believe in God. If I can't see it and kill it, it ain't real. Well, that's my story, and I hope we can go on a hunt. The only thing I'm looking to do is go out for photography, and if a once-in-a-lifetime kill crosses our path, maybe taking it or maybe not. The hunt itself is all I even need. But I want to do it up there, as I feel like you have some special views up there and possibly some special animals. Hope to hear from you soon. Thomas from CT. Thanks, Thomas. You know what you saw, man. It's unfortunate your partner doesn't want to face it, but that's fine. He doesn't have to. He knows what he saw. And he's not alone. Thanks again for sending that in, man. Oh, I gotta get back. I'm melting. I haven't ate today. Not good. My name is Raymond Lust. I'm 69 years old, retired mechanic, living in Powell River. My encounter, the first one was in Williams Lake in 1957 when I was 5 years old. The neighbor cleared some land, started to frame his house, then disappeared. One of my older brothers had brought a mattress box home, and we pushed it under the plowed up trees on the back edge of the property. I was youngest, and only and only one not in school. So the dog and I were playing in the fort. Fell asleep, but woke up to the dog growling like I've never heard him before. He was looking angleways across the road allowance. All four of Dynamite's legs were shaking, and the hair was up from the top of his head to the tip of his tail. I followed his sight and saw a hairy face looking at me from behind a pine. Some guys had been stuck there, and one guy tied a wall stud to the tree to strengthen it for the winch and left the 2x4 there. The face was above this stud, and I could make out a reddish-brown hairy man. The dog growling at my side, we took off running to the house. My mom said, "What's chasing you?" "The devil." And that's the end of that one. Well, that sounds familiar, Raymond. Familiar encounters, man. Thanks for sounding in, Raymond. If you got any more knowledge you want to share with everybody, share it here, alright? Or if you know somebody who needs to talk about this shit, tell them to email me. There's another one. The day I became a believer. Hi, Steve. I want to start by saying that I appreciate all you do. I watch all your videos and especially enjoy the scenery. It's amazing and breathtaking. I grew up in the mountains of eastern Kentucky myself. Anytime I see any mountains, it brings back childhood memories. I've also visited the Rockies as well, so I'm no stranger to the deep woods. As a hunter/fisherman my whole life, I never believed in Sasquatch. I always thought it was just something the old moonshiners would say to keep people out of the woods so they could make their shine. My daddy being one of them, I might add. Anyway, as time went on, as it always does, I found myself living in the upstate of South Carolina as an adult. I still love to fish and hunt, but with a family of my own now. I had this friend that I called Pool all the time because that was his last name. We was great friends until the day we both discovered Sasquatch. We used to always find the absolute best spots to fish. It was a thing between the two of us to outdo the other when it came to fishing and hunting. Anyway, one of our favorite spots we found was a natural mountain pond at the foot where three mountains came together. It's literally a small valley about 100 feet deep and 4 baseball fields wide and fed by small brooks, a creek and a stream. It's about 60 miles away from where I lived at the time. Fishing is always amazing there, Steve. Always. I've never failed to ever go there and not come home with some 5 to 8 pound largemouth. I've also caught many a large smallmouth, crappie, and even bluegill the size of your hand. Like I said, it's an amazing spot, but it's hard to get to. It takes about 3 hours of off-roading to get there. So me and Pool loaded up a John boat in the back of the truck, grabbed an extra battery from one of our other automobiles to run the trolling motor on, along with the battery from the truck, I might add, and some Coca-Colas and a few joints. And away we went. After getting to the spot, we fished for probably 2 hours along far right sides of the pond. Caught an amazing amount of panfish and 3 bass between the two of us. We decided to turn the boat and go to the other side of this pond. After we reeled in our lines and was about to set sail to the other side of the pond where a vehicle was waiting without a battery in it, never again, Steve. Never again will I ever do that, LOL. Anyway, as was beginning to move and turn the boat, alright, there's a few spelling mistakes in here, alright, guys? As I was beginning to move and turn the boat, we heard this extremely loud growl and a commotion coming from the side we were just fishing. We immediately stopped the boat and was dead silent and looked around. After a brief pause and dead silence, I mean no birds chirping, no squirrels frolicking, and no bustling around the trees, nada, I looked at Pool, who sarcastically said, "What the F did you put in this joint?" Expecting him to smile and laugh or do or say something, anything. The look on his face went from kind of unsure what just happened to pure horror. I turned around to the seat of the John boat to look at what Pool was looking at, and was I ever in for a surprise? All at once, all I had heard and been told about Sasquatch come about. I was terrified. I began to scream at Pool to get us the hell out of there. And as I did so, the Sasquatch was taking what looked like chunks of rocks out of the side of the mountain, easily weighing 100 to 150 pounds apiece, and began chucking those damn things at our boat like it was baseballs. At this point, Pool was screaming and turning the throttle to the trolling motor for us to make our exit. And as we slowly crossed the pond, massive rocks the size of bowling balls were almost hitting us, splashing just feet and sometimes inches from the boat. We made it to the other side and grabbed the boat and threw it in the back of our truck, grabbed the battery, connected it, and we got the hell out of there. We never really talked much after that and drifted away from one another. Man, I don't get that. He has then become dependent on heavy narcotics and has done a lot of prison time because of his habit. That's a sad story, man. I sometimes wonder if the experience we shared is what pushed him over the edge. Did it break his psyche? I mean, we were just two country boys out looking to catch some fish, and in a brief moment our lives changed. Unfortunately, his for the worst. Mine, however, has become infatuated with Sasquatch. I travel, chase leads, and go squatching quite on regular. I learn everything I can about them. I've since then had different encounters at the same spot, from the comfort of my damn truck, I might add, in listening to them howl, growl, and sometimes, yes, even throw shit at me. And after a few years of this, I've decided that if I do happen to come that close to Sasquatch again to where I can snap a picture, etc., would I really want to get proof of their existence? I personally think it would begin a countdown to their extinction. So I'm torn like hell on the subject. Once someone experiences one of these things, the amount of emotions and the emotional toll it takes on you is unbelievable. That's why I appreciate what you do. I've told this story to several people in my lifetime, and 9 out of 10 times they laughed and asked, could they get a quarter of weed we was smoking? And even the most would find humor in that. It really would just pisses me off. It really now just pisses me off. I know what I've seen, and I know what I've saw and experienced since then. Keep up the good work, and again, thanks for helping get the message out that these things exist, and that I'm especially not alone. If you're ever in the Appalachian Mountains around my way, look me up. I know a great spot to go fishing. Have a great day. Keep the videos and beautiful scenery coming. Best regards, Mark C. Thanks, Mark. Welcome to the Club of No Return, right? Everybody gets their welcome to the Club of No Return. And as far as these things going extinct, that's not going to happen. Not a chance, not from us. If there is a possibility of that happening, there'd be a lot of avid, keen, big game hunters out there who would have done the job by now. Or should I say big game hunters, but some skilled predators, right? There's been a handful of so-called big names in the Sasquatch community over the years who have gone out looking for them intentionally to harvest one, kill one, right? And didn't happen. So, and as far as taking a picture to prove these exist, well, from my point of view, these things have been proven about who knows how many times over. I mean, I've got, what, 15,000 emails? Somewhere abouts there? What is there's a pushing close to 250,000 subscribers on this channel. God only those subscribers have seen these things. There's far, far more than enough evidence to have it proven already, and people aren't avidly trying to seek them out and annihilate them. So, but I'm quite certain the moment we find the answer to why are we not being honestly informed about these things, when we find out the answer to that question, we're going to find out a lot. Guaranteed. Alright, here's one from near my neck of the woods, titled Pitt Lake Canoe Trip 1996. Hey Steve, been following you for the last year or more. It's because of you I've completed my unrestricted firearm safety course and the Core course. I'm waiting on that ticket so I can legally purchase a Henry 4570 for protection and a Henry 3030 for deer hunting. Right on, man. Healthy times, healthy living. I want to share my experience. I feel like it helps validate my experience. I never did see a Sasquatch, but looking back, it had all the symptoms of its presence. I was on edge and the anxiety is hard to describe. I could feel eyes on my tent, and the steps I could hear sounded like it was somebody trying their best to quietly maneuver around my campsite. I'm giving the lean version of my trip to keep it simple. It was around August 96. I canoed into Pitt Lake from Fort Langley. Took the Fraser River to where it meets the Pitt River, then into Pitt Lake. This took a lot longer than I thought. I finally set my tent up at around 1 a.m. and quickly laid down for the night. I could hear something walking near my tent. It sounded bipedal. I thought I may have camped near another tenter. When I woke that morning, I realized I was much farther down the lake than I had known. I was way past the island that is in the center of the lake on the Golden Ears mountainside. There was nobody else camping at that end of the lake, and no way to get there other than boat. It had to be a Sasquatch. As you're full aware, the Fraser Valley region of BC is rank with sightings over several lifetimes. Thanks for letting me share the story. I know it might be boring to some, but to me it was just as clear in my mind as though it just happened. No doubt, Len. No doubt. And thanks for sending that in. And just so you know, Golden Ears Provincial Park, that's where, who was it? I think that man named Adrian Erickson from Kelowna obtained DNA samples from Golden Ears Provincial Park. And there is absolutely numerous sightings around there non-stop. I think Dave Pilatus is just in there a year ago as well and had something happen. It's non-stop. Okay, I'm going to get one more out and I'm going back to camp. I am hungry. Sasquatch encounter in North Alabama. Hey Steve, thanks for all you do on this topic. There's a lot of things that we don't understand going on. The one thing we can agree on is we're being lied to. I've written to you before about an experience I had in Cherokee, Alabama. You haven't read it yet. But I get it. I know you're busy and have a lot going on. My name is Mike McDaniel. I'm 48 and I've been an avid hunter and fisherman all my life. I know all about the species of animals we have in this area and all over America. This experience I had took place in early morning hours, 2:30 to 3 a.m. We were fishing in a slough off Shoals Creek, a place called Falcon Head. It's across from the Boy Scout camp called Camp Westmoreland, named after General Miss Westmoreland. Bailey Springs is also near the same place this encounter happened. The hot springs brought people from all over the world to bathe in the hot springs. Supposedly, they had healing properties. So me and my buddy were fishing on an old pier at the base of Big Bridge. We'd been there about a couple of hours. We're young, probably around 12 to 13 years old. My dad would let us fish by ourselves late at night in fear we'd get hurt. So he was at the end of the little ridge road that followed the bottom of the ridge to the pier we're fishing on, probably around 200 yards away. Like I said, we're fishing, minding our business, and we're here on top of a ridge walking. Very heavy footsteps. It was thrashing about and breaking shit. It started coming down the ridge towards us. I freaked out and told my buddy we needed to run. He told me he was froze, in panic, and couldn't move, although he wanted to. It was an overpowering sense of fear. I'd never been that scared before. I immediately jumped up and began running as fast as I could toward my dad, screaming for him to help. The being was paralleling me at an angle towards me. It was gaining on me, and it was literally right beside me. I knew it had me. I was blind running when my dad ran into me and grabbed me and threw me out of the way, and in the woods right off the edge of the road he emptied 15 rounds from a 9mm. He had a mag light and immediately shined on it within a second of firing. I'll read that one more time. He had a mag light and immediately shined on it within a second of firing. There was nothing there. My dad said he could hear coming down the ridge. He said it freaked him out. Well, I know it was there. Hearing other people's story, there's no doubt what it was, the Sasquatch. I believe they have the power to cloak. It was 1985, I believe. I've got a couple more experiences in the same area I'll share later. Thanks for your time. Now, respect to you, brother. Thanks again. Wow. Man, I might have been reading that a little too fast, but it's kind of confused me for a second there. I didn't quite understand if your dad saw it and mag dumped into it, or if he just shot at the sound. I don't know. But either way, it doesn't sound like it's too pleasant an experience for either one of you. Welcome to Club of No Return. It's endless. I gotta get back to camp. I'm not reading too smooth. My stomach started to eat myself, I think. I think once I get back there, if this wind continues to stay away, I'm gonna spend some time this afternoon sharing more emails, because these moose aren't gonna be coming out till last light, so I gotta kill some time. I got the camera going, it's not windy, so I can do it smoothly. Anyway, share my story at howtohunt.com, tell my story at howtohunt.com, get it off your chest and get it out of you. It'll help.